Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is September 6, 2024. Want to thank Rob Grant, his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Jonah Raskin. Where in the heck you calling in from, Jonah?
I'm in San Francisco, California, on Post Street.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Water and air. Those are the best things.
I love that answer. Thank you. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Um, Probably print media, old-fashioned print media. Yes.
Print. Mallarmé says everything's going to end up in a book. I agree. Let's divert there for a second. Did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
Well, I lived in a house in which there were many books, and I had the freedom to wander about and look at the books on the shelves and to decide what I wanted to read. Sometimes because of the cover, sometimes because of the title. Like I picked up and started to read this novel by Dostoevsky called The Idiot because I was curious to know, a book about an idiot. That sounded appealing to me at the age of 11 or 12.
Good story, dude. So, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why do they gather information?
Yeah.
Well, in the same way, maybe that they're hunters and gatherers. I mean, they have to gather in order to survive. But then it gets perverted, and so they gather so they can have control over other tribes and other people and other places. Yeah.
Well, you kind of anticipate this. Is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
Oh, I would say it's probably something innate that, human beings were wandering around and they saw things, they heard things. So they didn't say to themselves, however many million years ago, oh, gather information. They were just doing it. They were breathing air, they were breathing in, and they were taking in information about the sky, the earth underfoot, the water that they saw, the animals, and they learned about their environment and learned how to survive. So I think absolutely essential.
Indeed. Jonah, do thoughts create emotions?
Well, yes, but it probably also goes the other way around. Emotions create thoughts.
Yeah.
You're in a situation and you have a certain feeling, and it triggers like a picture in your mind, and that leads to kind of thoughts or ideas. That's what I would say.
Fill in the blank, please. I don't know what I think until I.
Until 2 seconds from now.
You put in the time sequence. That's good. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Oh, okay.
I love that. 2 seconds from now, man. That's fast. Can humans think without language?
Well, they might think, but they probably are not thinking well without language. All thinking is not good thinking.
Yeah.
I think that you have to be able to express it, or either orally or written, or in some form, for it to be intelligible. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's good. Chomsky says the language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history. that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Smoke a joint. No, I'm not smoking as many joints now as I used to. I'm never smoking joints these days.
I think you come from the mutual friendship I had with Paul Krasner.
Yes. As soon as you said Krasner, I remember Krasner coming up from Southern California. He might have been, I'm trying to remember where Paul was living at the time. He might have been living in Venice Beach. And we met in San Francisco and wandered around the city and had a great time wandering around the city. I wrote something for Paul back in 1970. It was the only thing he ever published. And he changed what I wrote, and he made it way much better than it was. I had been to Algiers and met with Eldridge Cleaver and Timothy Leary and wrote something about them in that event, being that experience. And I made it totally serious, and Paul revised it so it had a lot of humor and satire in it. He did the right thing. Yeah.
Jonah, I welcome anecdotes, stories, tangents. You don't have to answer the questions. That was a great story because it reminded me, I use so many of Paul's jokes. He had a huge influence on me. And so I appreciate that. Truly a great spirit. And he actually asked me to write something once, and I said, nobody ever asked me to write anything. So it blossomed. It blossomed my career as a pseudo kind of wannabe writer. So he was a gracious and kind human being. And the next question is,
Jerry, can I go back to Paul for a minute?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So this kind of surprised me. So I wrote some blurbs for Paul's books, and he wrote some blurbs for me in my books, but he worried about the ethics of it.
Yeah.
One author scratching the back of another author and vice versa. I didn't have any problem with it, but he worried about it. Maybe he just worried about things like that.
That's really good. That's great. He was just thinking, I mean, I'm writing a book right now with someone who's 50 years younger than me. And I says, don't worry about it. We're just having fun and co-writing collaborative. It can be an art form. But I know what I want to say. Right in this chair in Venice, I interviewed Paul maybe 5 different times. And one time was right in the chair I'm sitting in right now. And Nancy, his wife, is sitting next to him. And I'm asking him all these questions that I'm asking you. And he would hear the question, he would laugh, then he would lean into Nancy and he'd go, how should I answer that? And then Nancy would say something and he would go, I'm not going to say that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, he could have it both ways. He could get the input from Nancy and then he could just ignore it.
I just loved it. He would literally say, I'm not going to say that.
It sounds like Paul.
Okay, Jonah, your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Oh, gosh. I would say we're more on the feeling side.
Yeah.
So, when you say that, I was remembering a friend of mine who worked at the same university where I taught at Sonoma State University. And he was complaining to me that a lot of people were saying, I feel this, or I feel that, or I felt this. and he was saying, why can't people say I think?
Yeah.
Well, but that was a long time coming. I think for many men, for a long, long time, people didn't say or wouldn't have said, I feel. They wouldn't have gone to the I feel place. They would go to the I think place.
Yeah.
So I think that people accepted the idea. I think it got to be called emotional intelligence.
Yes, that's it. Amazing, because 80% of people, I've been interviewing people for 40 years, 1,000 interviews, and 80% of people go, I think we're more feeling beings. They literally say that. My friend teases me and he goes, I feel we're more thinking beings. Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How can you turn off your brain from thinking when you're doing this sensual thing? And there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street, and it says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm saying, well, maybe you could reword it and say, don't believe everything you feel.
Yes. Well, I don't think I've ever entertained any thoughts when I'm having an orgasm or my partner's having an orgasm.
That's pretty good.
We're doing it. Yeah. Yes. Sex drives thought out much of the time. You might imagine things.
Well, Frank Zappa asked this ultimate question. I thought, can you come and laugh at the exact same moment?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I remember my lover, Marjorie, that she used to laugh when we were having sex. And I took it personally and I got offended. I mean, I should have just gone along with her and laughed, I mean, sex is pretty funny, I think that Aristophanes, this Greek playwright, wrote this comedy. I think it was called Lysistrata. An erection is a pretty funny thing. If you see a man without any clothes on with a big heart on, that's kind of funny.
I think that's the name of a good song. An erection is a very funny thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, I believe I consider the soul different than the brain or the mind. I mean, and I came, I would say, pretty late in life to realizing or accepting the notion that human beings had a soul. And I don't know exactly where it's located. And that just reminds me, I think I've heard that in some Asian cultures, that people, I think my friend Scoop Niskar said this, that some Asian cultures say that thinking comes from the heart, the organ of the heart. It doesn't come from the brain. Does that sound familiar, Jerry? Have you ever heard that, or am I just
that sounds great. And tell you what, I believe anything Scoop says. I was lucky enough to interview him. He is one of my true heroes. If you don't like the news, go out and make it yourself.
Yes.
If thinking is from the heart, that's beautiful. I think that's really well put. And in fact, you said you didn't know where the soul was located. Maybe it's back to our last statement. It could be in the erection.
Yeah, well, Henry Miller said in one of the Tropic books, I did some of my best thinking through my penis. Good for you, Henry. Yeah.
Okay, we're off to a good start, Jonah. That's what I like to do, is have fun with these. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Probably. They're probably outthinking us, and I'm not worried that they'll take us over. A friend of mine who was a novelist, wrote a lot of novels. She thought that machines were changing the ways that human beings thought, the
Yeah.
thought processes themselves. So people were thinking like computers.
Yeah.
So if people are thinking like computers, that probably means that computers think, because
Yeah.
we've been computerized.
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Well, I think happiness is the way to go. You know, go on the road to happiness. Meaning, if you have happiness, then meaning will follow.
Yeah, I
Uh,
got it from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He says happiness doesn't tend to last and meaning tends to last.
oh, well, that's one point of view. I think meanings change
Yeah.
over time and through history. Um, I mean, I just wrote something. The most recent thing I've written and published was about the N word.
Yeah.
And over the course of time, I think the meaning of the N word has changed. Maybe
Yeah.
not for everybody, but for
Yeah.
large parts of the population. It doesn't mean what today we to like Kamala Harris or our running mate, you know, what it meant to a plantation owner, say in 1850. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Um does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Well, I just that reminded me of something I read recently. I'm not sure where the hell I read it, but the person said there's no longer any such thing as the unconscious.
Yeah.
Now, that got me thinking, why wouldn't there, if there was once an unconscious, and I believe there was, what has ended the unconscious? Maybe we're so mindful, even though we seem very mindless a lot of the times. A lot because of the media. You know, a lot of what's underneath there, beneath the surface, has gotten elevated and visible. Um, you're not allowed to have an unconscious anymore. If you do, that's like it's against the law to have an unconscious.
Reminds me of George Carlin said, whatever happened to letting kids stare out the window?
Right. It reminds me of being in a classroom and the kids are staring out the window and the teacher says, "Oh, don't do that. You can't do that." So, Jerry, do you remember whether George Carlin had the N word on his list of forbidden words?
Geez, I should know the 7 words. I don't even know him, but I worked for him for half a year. He's an amazing man. He actually gave me the greatest compliment of my life. He says, "I'm going to learn a lot from you." I says, "Could I put that on my gravestone?" But I don't know, but that's very amazing. I mean, I was going to go into that because, I'll just use the word, sorry to say. Um, Patti Smith sings a song, nigger, 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 nigger. Yoko Ono says, woman is the nigger of the world. Frank Zappa has a song, nigger business. I mean, this is a word, this is a tool, but it carries a lot of baggage. I used to go up to my white friend on Venice Boardwalk and he'd go, "What's up, nigga?" I mean, me and him are playing and we're having fun with
Yes.
street slang, but you don't want to go in the black ghetto and go up to a dude and maybe say that. But then again, nowadays they might go, "Oh, that's your greeting and you're talking my language." So it's
Yeah.
like it's an important tool, all words, but it is cautionary where you want to use them, you know. So
Yes. Gosh, I was just trying to remember the black comedian I heard once perform in New York. He did a lot of freebasing. Does that ring a bell? Who would that have been?
Paul Mooney,
No, a black comedian.
not Richard Pryor.
Yeah, Richard Pryor.
Oh yeah, that's Paul Mooney wrote all of Richard's good stuff.
Oh, really? Well,
A lot of it.
I saw and heard. I heard him in a crowded theater in New York, and the only two words that he said, or maybe it's just one word, was motherfucker. Every time he said motherfucker, the audience went wild, laughing.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. You just say motherfucker.
Yeah.
But this was quite maybe 30 years ago.
Right.
Probably wouldn't get the same response today.
Yeah. But it is, it all goes back to, well, the Godhead was Lord Buckley, but he spawned Lenny Bruce. And Lenny Bruce was huge in Paul Kraser's life. And people don't realize what Lenny learned from Lord Buckley was that you turn comedy into storytelling. And you don't just tell jokes, you tell stories.
Yeah.
And then what Lenny Bruce is known for is the guy who opened up the floodgates to potty mouth. So then all the comedians start using these, 4-letter word or, language. And they don't realize that Lenny Bruce, you should have learned a lot more from Lenny Bruce than just saying dirty words.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm writing the story of my life or parts of it right now. And I was thinking of giving the title Anti-Imperialist Motherfucker.
Do it, dude. That is a great title. Go ahead.
Jerry, I was in a bookstore in San Francisco, Green Apple Books.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to one of the guys working there my idea for the title. And I said, would you carry a book that had Anti-Imperialist Motherfucker in the title? And he said, of course, we'd love to have it. So there, he gave me the green light.
There's the green light.
Green apple.
Yeah, he gave you the green apple. Jonah, that's my question, 90 minutes down the line. That's one of my questions. If you were going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be? But the follow-up question, which I'll ask you right now, is the publisher wants to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
What scent in the binding?
Of your autobiography, yes.
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. I'm not sure what I would say. Definitely not patchouli.
Guess what? You're more than psychic. You know where I got that question from was because when Madonna released her book, she scented the glue with patchouli. And I thought that was so corny that I says, well, I'm just going to ask everybody the question. What should they scent it with? Definitely not patchouli.
Well, so Jerry, I had a girlfriend in the 70s who was wanted by the FBI. And she always put on some kind of patchouli perfume, which lingered. So I would always know where she was. I'd walk into a room, I would smell patchouli and say, "Oh, yeah, my girlfriend has been here." You couldn't hide.
You could track her down. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Probably light. I think probably light is. Yeah.
Audre Lorde, the poet, said,
yes,
you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer, her colleague, said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Well, I think that a lot of people who liberate themselves and others, they take the tools of the person who's using them to oppress and exploit and turn them against, turn them inside out. So It could be a machine. It could be a weapon. I think you said Andre Lord said that. I probably would want to have a discussion with her about that to find more about what she was thinking.
Yeah.
Why did she say that? I mean, the word. People have used the word to corral other human beings, and the word has also been used to free people. You can't get away from the word, I don't think.
Yeah, word is important. McLuhan said word is the most addicting and universal drug.
Yeah, gotta give me my words, man. Give it to me.
Okay, what new toy do you suggest?
A new toy?
Yeah.
Well, I would like a toy that took all pain away, physical pain.
I want that toy. Tell me whenever you find that out, let me know. Okay, Jonah, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it seems like I used to be able to fall asleep very easily. The older I get, though, seems the more challenging it is to just relax and sleep.
I agree. I have that too going on in my life. So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Jonah, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, we do seem to be a species that embraces denial a lot of the time. We want to go into denial.
Yeah.
So I did use the Ezra Pound quote about artists as the antenna of the race for an essay they wrote about Jack London and his novel, The Iron Heel, which was published about 1910. And it's about the coming of fascism to the United States. So he sensed that it was coming, or part of his brain sensed that it was coming. And he wrote about it in The Iron Heel. Yeah.
I know your studies and publications on Jack London are really important. I thank you for all that. Now, the next question is, do artists have moral obligation?
Probably if writers start out feeling they had a moral obligation, they wouldn't write or create works that were like compelling or appealing. You know, they would be very preachy. They would think they had the right answers.
Yeah.
So forget it. Nobody has the right answers, at least not 100% of the time.
Dude, I really appreciate your honesty and your concise and articulate, because 90% of people go, everybody has a moral obligation. It's like, yeah, well, art is supposed to fuck your shit up and make you think and do things and not just coddle you, although that's all right. So thank you for saying that. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Well, I try to it reminds me of the same woman I was thinking about, when she said that she was in her 70s, she said that the older that she got, the more she noticed that she automatically dismissed anything that was new just because it was new. So the new can be sometimes very unsettling or threatening, which is all the more reason to go with the new, accept the new idea, to explore it.
Yeah.
Old ideas, I think probably the distance in time from old ideas makes them seem, well, I think, I don't know if I could give you an example, but there's probably old ideas that embarrass me now, things that I said.
Yeah.
Like I said once that the American left should infiltrate the CIA and spy on the CIA. I mean, that was never going to happen. Not in this country.
Well, that is a deep, deep, deep thing you just said. We could do a whole salon on that, and maybe we will. Jonah, can you conjure up your earliest memory or one of them?
I can definitely conjure up early memories. Yes, I can indeed.
Tell me one of your earliest, please.
Okay, I'm like 3.5 years old. It's summertime. I'm with my parents. We have a cabin on a lake, and I'm getting ready to get into bed. And my father says, Jonah, I want you to know that the Nazis used to, not that long ago, would round up Jews and put them in gas ovens and exterminate them. And I said, Dad, why did you have to tell me that now? I'm just ready to go into bed. I'll have nightmares. And he said, you had to know sooner or later, so now is as good a time as any that you know that.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, it helps to be able to forget some things, to obliterate some memories. If you went around remembering everything all the time, that would weigh you down. Got to get rid of them, some of them. Yeah.
Tell me someone within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, my father was definitely my most important teacher. I mean, I can still remember things that he said to me. I mean, he taught me like how to make a good cup of coffee, for example, something very simple like that. And he noticed a lot of things about me. He would often say to me, "Take it easy, but take it."
Yeah.
So he was noticing that I needed to relax, but get the job done, even while I was relaxed.
Yeah.
So that's still really good advice. Take it easy, but take it.
Yeah.
Don't get your balls all tangled up. And then,
really wise man, really wise. That's beautiful.
yeah, definitely. So he went to his death a peaceful man, a man at peace with himself. He said, I've done everything that I wanted to do in my life. There's nothing else I want to do. I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
My mother was not like that. My mother was terrified of dying. God,
Wow.
drove herself crazy. Yeah.
Before we go into someone outside your family, I just want to ask you, Jonah, it seems as though you have great critical thinking skills, or you've developed critical thinking skills. And maybe you got that from your dad or your mom and dad's DNA. Where do you think you got that? More from the DNA, the way they raised you, or on your own?
Well, so I taught at Sonoma State University, and at Sonoma State and at other colleges in the California State University system. A required class was called critical thinking.
I see.
Now that seems to me to be, you can't require people to take, and that seems to me to defeat the purpose of critical thinking. It's a requirement.
Yeah, let me brainwash you to be a critical thinker.
Yeah, exactly. That's so the teachers, on the whole, the teachers wanted the students to think like them and not really to think critically. Like if during the time of, I know, civil war in Nicaragua or some other place, if the students didn't think the way the teachers were thinking, then they get a lousy, the teachers would post the grades on their door. I would see people getting C- and D in critical thinking. There's something wrong with that. That's crazy. The C minus in critical thinking. Ah,
But
um,
but your own skill of you've developed that skill over the years. Do you think it came more from your parents' DNA, the way they raised you, or on your own?
well, whether it came from my parents or not, I think it was something that was inborn in me, the critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, from an early age, like asking questions. I think that's probably innate. Asking, Daddy, why is the sky blue?
Yeah.
What did you do in the war, Daddy?
Yeah.
You ask. It's just innate to ask questions. That's a part of critical thinking is asking questions,
Yeah.
not just accepting everything or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The joke I love is the kid gets to the age where he realizes his dad has a job and he goes to work, and his dad's an art teacher. So he asks his dad, he says, Dad, well, what do you do for your job? He says, I teach people how to draw. And the kid goes, You mean they forgot?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Okay, now outside your immediate family, Jonah, someone who had an impact on you. And what was that impact?
Well, I mean, that was like a writer by the name of Doris Lessing. Born in Persia, grew up in southern Rhodesia, spent most of her time in England. She told me that she discovered what she wanted to say in the process of writing. She said, What's the point of writing, starting out and knowing what you want to say? You need to discover it in the process. So that's like an openness to see, what comes to you or bubbles up from inside. That was really valuable. Yeah.
Love it. Great writer. Beautiful. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
The religion of communism.
Do you pray?
Sometimes.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Mm, I hope your flesh will, I don't know. What would I like God to say to me? I mean, with the man, I have the name Jonah, you know.
Yeah.
In the Bible, the Old Testament, God says a lot of things to Jonah. Go to Nineveh, tell the people I'm going to destroy it unless they mend their ways. So I've been hearing God for my whole life. Uh, you know, I would say, listen, I'm not going to Nineveh. I am not going on any mission you send me on. Even if I have to spend the rest of my life inside the whale, I'll choose that, where I don't have to hear you. I'll be inside the whale, and it's insulated, and all that blubber, and your voice can get in there.
Jonah, this is funny. One guy says, What do you want God to say to you? And he said, Not.
Yeah.
But I would say to God, I would want God to tell me who killed Kennedy. Come on. Here's what everybody says, Jonah. They go, You did a good job. That's what they want God to say, or welcome. Anyways, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Well, I do think that there's evil. I think anybody who grows up reading American novels from the early 19th century, like Nathaniel Hawthorne, or anybody who knows anything about the Puritans who came to this country, knows that there's something called evil. There's evil. There's evil afoot in the world. and it latches itself on to things and places. I mean, the Puritans thought that the wilderness, the forest, that they were evil and Indians were evil.
Horrible.
Yeah. Instead of making their peace with this place, they made war on it.
Yeah, it's like this stupid wording. They say we're going to fight a fire. Well, take a lesson from American Indians, indigenous natives. They said we fire management. We manage the fire. You don't fight fire. It's all an attitude. But really, the hidden question, Jonah, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a lot of prompts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, that reminds me that Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the poet, the guy who founded City Lights Bookstore and Publishing, he was very angry with Gregory Corso, who was one of the beat poets, who had said, you have to love the atomic bomb. If you hate the atomic bomb, you'll only make it bigger and more of a threat. So, I don't know, that's hard to think about, love your enemy. You could love your enemy and still want to defeat them.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd want to defeat them all the more if you love them.
Yeah. But, the hidden question really is, how, like if someone comes to you and say, I'm being bullied, the new, catchword, what would you say to them? Like, oh, I'm being bullied. What should I do? What would you say to them?
I'm being bullied. What should I do?
Yeah.
Well, I was bullied in grade school, and then I did some bullying. I know the bully sometimes turns into the bullier. Just like somebody who has his bicycle stolen becomes a bicycle thief.
Yeah.
So probably empathize with the bully.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who bullied me was I still remember his name was Calvin. My mother would put like hot soup in a thermos. In those days, like a thermos had glass inside. And Calvin would take my thermos and he would smash it.
Oh.
He did that over and over again. And then finally my mother wisened up and didn't give me breakable thermoses. I don't know what happened to Calvin. He disappeared.
Yeah.
Puff.
Jonah, it goes into this world too. Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, the Chilean singer, Victor Jara,
Yeah.
I believe he had his hands cut off, so he couldn't play the guitar, and then he was shot and killed. I mean, he was punished for opposing the dictator Pinochet, and then he was killed. So it worked in the sense that he couldn't sing anymore. I mean, other people could sing. It didn't work because other people came along and sang his songs. And remember, Victor Jara. Yes.
Thank God for Phil Oakes for teaching us about Victor and keeping his spirit alive. Yeah. So Jonah, James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, then we wouldn't be human beings if we didn't have McLuhan, I think, called them, we have something, I think he called it anti-reality.
Yeah.
We create things that are movies, books. That's just in the nature of who we are.
Yeah.
And we create them in order to understand the reality. You've got to have the anti-reality
Yeah.
in order to understand the reality, have some control over it.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, because I really wanted to delve into that Faulkner quote. Sometimes the best fiction is more true than reality, because than journalism, excuse me. Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism, because, I mean, did you start as walk us through your career? Where's the tipping point you wanted to be a journalist? And then where's the tipping point you wanted to be a fiction writer? So, did you find doing both? How does that Faulkner quote apply? Do you find, you're being more true in journalism or more true in fiction?
Well, I've written a lot of journalism and I've written a lot of fiction. And I wrote both from the time I was about 10 years old.
Yeah.
My first published work was as a sports reporter. I played
Yeah.
football in high school on Saturday afternoons. And then Sunday, I sat down at the typewriter and I wrote a story about the game that had just happened the day before. And then before I had a driver's license, my father would take me and my copy to the office of the newspaper and deliver it. So I was writing journalism. But I also was writing stories. I was getting accepted. I mean, I was published for the journalism. I got marked down, got lousy grades for the stories that I wrote by the English teachers. So early on, I did not get encouragement from school teachers. But I always thought, or for a long time, I thought, and from a young age, I thought that the novel was the epitome of human expression. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't think that about film or the symphony. I thought that about the novel. I mean, I loved all those great big 19th century novels like Dickens and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and Herman Melville. That was the pinnacle for me of like human expression.
Yeah. But this screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. Tell us, in both accounts, what role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing nonfiction and when you're writing fiction?
Well, intention definitely it plays a huge part when I'm writing nonfiction. I think with fiction, it's more like Doris Lessing's idea of discovering what I want to say in the process of saying it. So I might have an intention, but in the process of writing, the intention gets overthrown or dismantled or something, and something else comes in its place because I've been open to it. I've been open to this new thing coming into my conscience or unconscious or surfacing or what have you.
Yeah. But Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your reader when you're writing?
probably thinking of the reader too much. I mean, uh, writing my memoir now, I have said to myself, is not helpful. Who's ever going to want to read this? That's not a helpful approach. You know, I think I have to start off, or would like to start off by writing for myself,
Yeah.
my own audience of one,
Yeah.
and maybe other people will read it, or maybe they won't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely benefited from writing the story of my life because I've remembered all kinds of things I didn't know were there. It's been a wonderful gift.
Beautiful. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter in a camera, a projector extends our eyelid, maybe even non-tangible, say religion or philosophy extends consciousness. What does the writing utensil extend for you? Whether it's a pen or a keyboard, what humanness does the writing utensil extend for you?
Well, I think it definitely extends memory.
Yeah.
Um, it discovers it or recovers it and magnifies it and probably also shapes it. I know the memory of something is not the same as the originating thing.
Yeah.
It's probably, although I'm happy to say that when I share a memory with my two brothers, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I have the same memory." It's very reassuring or comforting to know that I haven't just fabricated these things. You know?
Yeah. That's good. Milan Kundera said in The Unbearable Likeness of Being, this is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can. Hey, that sounds cool and romantic and poetic, but if I take this ink and I put it on paper, how can the character go further than the ink on the paper?
Um, well, the character is more than the ink on the paper. The character exists in the consciousness of the author, and the character also exists in the consciousness of the reader.
Yeah.
And so, how did the character get from the consciousness of one to the consciousness of the other? It traveled. The character traveled, and it's the character gets the book to transport it. The book is working on behalf of the character
Yeah.
and the author.
Yeah. That's good. When we read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people, it's a living organism. It's no longer a book. He discovered the internet and disguised it as a book. But this is the poet critic Helen Vendler. She just passed away. She said, "I write to explain things to myself."
I guess I do some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I also want to explain things to other people,
Yeah.
um, or tell them, or tell people about something. Yeah, I mean, I just started to write something about an American Indian writer novelist named Tommy Orange, and I want to tell people about Tommy Orange and his books. So it's more than just writing for myself. It's definitely writing for an audience.
Yeah. This is Bertel Breck asked Charles Lawton, "Why do you act? Why are you an actor?" He says, "Because people don't know what they are like, and I think I can show them." Now, that's like, how does one acquire taste? This is also same thing as Igor Stravinsky saying, most people don't know what they like what they know. So, My friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. Like technique, you've learned how to write. Theory, you know the structure. How does one acquire taste?
Well, maybe
The
it
taste
seems
receptors are
obvious.
located around the small structures known as papillae found on the upper surface of the tongue, soft palate,
By tasting. You know what taste is like by tasting.
Yeah, that's what most people say by experience or by exposure. You know, yeah,
Yeah, you got to taste,
yeah,
smell,
yeah,
see, hear. Open your senses.
yeah. Sensual perception, you're saying, yeah. In David Mamet taught Steve Martin, art is a product of the unconscious mind. I feel me and you have been conscious here for an hour talking. How
Yeah.
and the neuroscientists say we operate 80% unconscious or subconscious. How is that? How can art be a product of the unconscious mind when don't you have to be conscious doing it?
Well, you will ask a question, and for a nanosecond or so, I don't know what I want to say. And then something from a place I like to think of as the unconscious comes to the surface, and then I utter it, I speak it.
Yeah.
So I think my unconscious has been making itself known. It's been clawing its way to the surface, and then I express it. I learned painfully over the course of a long time to be able to express myself, because for a long, long time, I rarely spoke. I wrote, I expressed myself through words on the page. But I didn't speak because I was afraid that I would say the wrong thing. And then I think I came to the conclusion that it's better to say something than nothing at all.
Yeah.
And maybe there's no such thing as the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's possible, no such thing. It's, and you can always say, oh, excuse me, I didn't mean that. What I was trying to say is this. I mean, you can go back and replay it.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yep. An artist, Mike Kelly, said, art is making your problems other people's problems. Any comment?
Well, it's not just problems. It's like experiences. It's life.
Yeah.
Life is not just problems.
Yeah, good. Because poet Fannie Howe, she said something I've always tried to understand, but I never get it. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't. That's it's a little complex to figure that out. And you have any thoughts on that one, Jonah? The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't.
Well, coming back to Jack London, he wrote a novel called Martin Eden. It's an autobiographical novel. And at the end of the novel, the main character is named Martin Eden, commits suicide. So I think if there is a message in this book, it's not do as Martin Eden did. Don't go out and commit suicide, but live your life.
Yeah.
A character could die or commit suicide, but well, apparently there's some works of literature where the character commits suicide and people went out and committed suicide. That has happened.
Yeah. In fact, this is Malraux, the French, I think he's a poet. The art is to transfer destiny into awareness. And then, we talk about narrative and storytelling. The experimental filmmaker Hollis Frampton said, narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Gosh. Well, I don't. A lot of times, I don't know whether to use the word story or use the word narrative.
Yeah.
I don't really know if they're different or they're the same thing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who taught literature used to say that narrative can't lie.
Yeah.
Now, I don't. That's something that I've thought about a lot. I don't know whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
He's no longer alive, so I can't ask him. Narrative can't lie.
Yeah.
He was a very smart guy. He wrote a lot about narratives and stories and characters. Why why can't a narrative lie? I don't know, maybe because the narrative by its very nature has its antithesis. So by telling a story, you're also telling the anti-story that goes along with it.
That's amazing because I know one of your guys is mine is F.I.F. Stone. He said the truth as I see it. I love that line, but it reminds me of Marcel Proust's question: "On what occasion do you lie?"
All the time.
That's like Tom Waits says, I didn't know I needed an occasion.
Well, I was having lunch a little while ago, and I was talking about my name, and I said to the woman I was having lunch with, I said I could. I'm living for the last 2 weeks in a community. I'm a newcomer here, so nobody really knows me. And I said I can introduce myself as Mark or Tommy or Boris, and nobody would know the difference.
Yeah.
So is that a lie or is that a story?
Yeah. Well, I love you doing that because this is Shelby Foote. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
Well, maybe.
That's a difficult one. Most people don't want to go along with that. I'm not saying any of these are right or wrong because Louis Buñuel said, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth,
You
but
love it.
I part ways."
You might hate it also.
Yeah, you might hate it also because that's Louis Buñuel says, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it."
So, Jerry, if you will hold on a second,
Yeah,
I would like to find a quotation, which I think that I will, it's a good chance I
sure.
will use in my book. And let me see if I can. What is her name? Oh, yeah, her name is Jamaica Kincaid.
Oh yeah.
So she said, I don't know exactly where she said this, but I like it. What she said was, quote, everything I say is true and everything I say is not true.
Yeah.
You couldn't admit any of it in a court of law. It would not be good evidence. So I like that. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. No, that's really good because uh there's so many you know truth quotes I have to explore, but Picasso said art is a lie that tells the truth. And when Buñuel says, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it," 90% of people go, "Oh, I like that." And one guy goes, "No, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it." And I morphed it into this question, Jonah. If the journey is more important than the destination, then why do we have to name or seek a destination?
Probably to get us out of our easy chair or out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
If we don't have something to reach for, to go on a pilgrimage, to go on a search.
Yeah.
you gotta light a fire under yourself. Otherwise, you might just sit there. Or it's a prompt.
Yeah.
Getting you up and getting you going, a destination. Yeah, I think I've been helped by having destinations.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that I am often on the journey before the journey begins.
Yeah.
No, I was planning to go to London, and I did go to London, but I was sitting and having drinking a glass of wine with a friend, and there I was in New York, but in a way I was already in motion going towards London. So the destination helped.
Yeah, this is interesting because the people in Paris in the 20s were called flaneurs, psychogeography. They just like Picasso and Hemingway and Joyce, who said find an epiphany in everydayness. Like just you just sit at the coffee house and slack and drink your cup of wine, and then some sort of epiphany might come to you. But this is about saving our stuff, Jonah. It's sort of an extension. The word archive etymologically comes from 1400s, to keep safe from harm, but 1600s is what we think archive means, a record preserved as evidence. But it was Charles Baudelaire, the French poet, said, if you try to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you try to only own the day you're talking, it will last forever. Why do we have to archive? Is it more innate or more invented? I mean, of course, we love studying history and not repeating, but isn't the point of life, like Ram Dass, be here now, live in the moment? Wyndham Lewis said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So, do you think this need or want to archive is more innate or more invented?
Well, on the subject of Ram Dass, it reminds me, a friend of mine was working as a waiter at a restaurant in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And Ram Dass came into the restaurant and sat down, and my friend went up to him and said, "Are you who I think you are?" And Ram Dass turned to him and said, "More importantly, are you who you think you are?"
What a comeback.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, Jonah. I mean, the futurists said destroy all libraries and museums. Hey, I go to a library every day, but I love the fact that they came up with that idea. And you just got your bare minimum now, a few books over there, but you've over the years you collected tons of boxes of stuff. Did your archive go to some place? And do you have any plans for your archive? And just talk about that, the archiving idea.
Well, my archive didn't just go some places. I sold parts of my archive and received money from certain libraries.
Very good. Was that hard to do or easy?
Well, I had archives that had some valuable things, and the libraries were willing to pay money for it. The University of Texas in Austin paid for my Abby Hoffman archive and my Doris Lessing archive. I have most of my archive nobody wanted to buy, and so a part of it, which had the part of it which was anything having to do with California or Californians, went to the University of California, Davis, and I didn't get any money for that, but they wanted to have anything that had to do with California. Yeah.
But that's good. But again, is this need or want for humans to archive more innate and more invented?
Well, This reminds me of the time that I was complaining to a friend of mine about, two writers. One of them is named Rebecca Solnit, and the other one is named Naomi Klein. And Rebecca Solnit's note that she plays over and over again is that paradise rises from the ashes of ruined places. And Naomi Klein's note that she plays over and over again is that anytime there's a disaster, capitalism figures out how to make a profit from it. So, one of them is, hope comes out of ashes. And the other one is sort of like, money comes out of ashes. So, and I was complaining about this to my friend Robert, and he said, well, why couldn't it be both? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe so, the answer to a lot of your questions, Jerry, is probably it's both.
Oh yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
these are just prompts to get us to have a conversation and to air you've enlightened me a lot, Jonah, because I appreciate it. I'm one of those people who ask questions, but I don't expect people to answer the question. Like I don't go, do you answer? I'm more for a story or an anecdote or a tangent. What do you think the motive of the cave artist was?
The motive of what?
The cave artist.
Oh, the cave artist. Probably had several reasons for the painting. One of them was to express beauty.
Yeah.
I think they had a sense of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's part of human beings. We create beautiful things. Color. Yep. Yeah.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Well, for most of my life, I believed, or for a good part of my life, I believed that it was necessary to confront whatever it was. You have to confront something.
Yeah.
Confrontation. And then more recently, I've come to think that it's important to, I don't know, what's the opposite of confront? To
conform.
No, not conform.
Okay.
But sort of, to live with something rather than to want to fight it.
Right. That's kind of like compromise. You mean to just go along?
Not feel if you're people who said always talking about fighting. Well, fighting is endless. You can fight. You can fight against something every moment of your day, from the time young until you die. So I don't want to just go through life fighting for something or against something.
Yeah.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, because you can find commonality and connect with others. That's what I like, to find commonality. Yeah, but I know what you're saying. Most people, when I say what's more important, conviction or compromise, most people say conviction. But I love when people say compromise, because it's like who knows? It's not an either or. It's both. And it's like Pascal, the mathematician philosopher. He says, in order to understand anything, you have to know this end of the spectrum and that end and everything in between.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
So for your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Well, I definitely know that I've been ambitious. I wanted to write things that would last and be memorable and would reach people. And that goes, back to my days as an athlete. I was competitive. I wanted to win the football game. And I wanted to make the team before I was even on the team. I wanted to make the team. Then I wanted to be on the starting team. I don't think I thought in terms of becoming an all-star. I mean, I was selected for the all-star football team where I lived. And what were the other things, Jerry, besides ambition? Luck?
Skill and luck.
Well, it does help to be like in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It helped me, for example, that I was in New York in the late 60s and early 70s. And just sort of like walking around or walking into somebody's apartment, I made all these connections. So there was a lot, it seemed like there was, well, but was that luck? Was it luck that I was in New York at that time? Certain extent it was luck. Maybe it was also destiny. I was destined to be in New York.
That's what I like. You can substitute words. The words I offer aren't necessarily the words. Like you changing the word conviction and compromise to confront was really important for me, because it's me and you versus the wording on the questions. Sometimes when I tell people luck, skill, and ambition, they go, none of those three. It's purpose or destiny or persistence or necessity,
So I wouldn't have been able to, no matter, I had good connections and I was ambitious, but I wouldn't have been able to find a publisher for any of my books unless I had skill.
Yeah.
To write them. So skill was definitely important,
Yeah.
And that takes time and energy and putting in the hours.
T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Oh, well, it's definitely in the English language.
But I mean more so metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness in?
What form is it in?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What choices do I have? I mean, it's probably like I'm having a dialogue with myself.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm having a monologue.
There you go. Both. That's good.
Yeah.
Two of my film heroes say, ignore yourself. There's no self-expression. Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making, writing, more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Well, I have heard people say it's, what comes out is just, I don't know, it's the universe expressing itself through me. I've heard it many times. I've never really bought that point of view or perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something I have to look at and see, what is it that's wanting from the universe that wants to use me as a vehicle to be expressed. That might be
Dante prayed to the muse to aid him, but Jonah, can art making, writing be egoless?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Is perception reality?
Definitely not.
Tell me one major element of your creative life, being a journalist and a fiction writer and a poet, one major element that stayed the same and one major element that's changed.
Well, to answer you that fully, I would probably need to have time to think about that. The answer does not come to mind immediately. I don't know.
No worries.
What has stayed the same and what has changed? I do not know.
That's all right. No worries at all. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Oh, well, I don't know, maybe this weakness, this inability or unwillingness to speak, to express myself orally,
Yeah.
became some kind of strength because it gave me the time to, while I was silent, my mind was at work, sorting things out and weighing things and putting them in some sort of organization. So it was like it was hibernating in there, and then when it was ready to come out, it came out.
Really good answer there, Jonah. We got about 10 more minutes and we're out of here. I really appreciate your time. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
When it's made to like focus on something and have some kind of target.
Yeah, this next question refers back to Paul Krasner and what he's taught me. I asked my friend who wrote comedy for Robin Williams, can satire be destructive? He says that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country, they kill us. Some people think dying is destructive. Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
Well, it's I think the best function is to ridicule, to show that the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
I think maybe Krasner said that, and other people have said that, is to ridicule, satire is to ridicule ideas which seem to hold sway over people's lives.
Yeah.
Or people who, to ridicule it ridicule Elon Musk. I said not long ago, the environmental movement needs to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like, Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove, taking the bomb and the idea of the end of the world and making it funny, laugh at it. That's really important.
Thank God Stanley hired my friend's dad, Terry Southern, to write the comical dialogue for Strangelove because it was serious until he hired Terry to write the jokes.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
What's the function of laughter?
Well, if you laugh, you're relaxed.
Yeah.
You're going to be gritting your teeth and all tensed up and laugh. You laugh. You're letting. It's the letting go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Gurdjieff said function of laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. But McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen, behind every joke, there's a grievance. Any comment?
Well, I think maybe it helps. That sounds very Jewish. You might get more mileage out of a grievance if you turn it into a joke than if you just leave it as a grievance.
What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
No, men are from Mar Vista and women are from Venice.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there's a line that goes, Jonah, there, you've heard this, you create what you resist. I just heard today, it's the same thing Freud said, but Bob Goldthwait, the comedian right there in the Bay Area, said, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So any thoughts on this line? You create what you resist. Not you, but like one creates what one resists.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to me absolutely, that nails it. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's
Yeah.
5 quick Alan Watts questions, just off the top of your head in a couple words. 1, who started it all?
Eve,
2, are we going to make it?
no.
3, where do we put it?
Where it belongs.
4, who's cleaning it up?
Gosh, Harvey Keitel.
That's a good one, dude. Jonah, 5, is it serious?
I hope not.
Frank Zappa said, I'm very serious about being not serious.
So you know what I'm talking about, the Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction. You know, gets called in to clean up the mess of this killing that has taken place.
And what happens? I don't know it.
Well, the guy he's at home and his wife is going to come home soon, and he's terrified that his wife is going to see that some kind of massacre has taken place, and then I don't know, either John Travolta or his pal, we'll call the cleanup guy, and it turns out to be Harvey Keitel, and he comes in there, and he just matter of factly like cleans everything up, so there's no trace that there's been any murder there.
Yeah, Quentin Tortellini. Okay, so how do you find peace of mind?
Helps to meditate, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Listen to music. Listening to music is good. I want to listen to music when I get off here this interview with you. I've been streaming music on my laptop. And usually I have it on all day.
Well, we just got a few more, and again, I appreciate it. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Keep going. Don't get sidetracked.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Mother love.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Give them the finger.
Never had that answer, Jonah. Thank you. In 40 years. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, I like it that it seems to me that a lot of voters, citizens of this country, or maybe not even citizens, like Kamala Harris and her running mate, for who they are, not for any position that they take. I mean, and part of it's gotten to be acceptable that you're not in one category or another category. You could be South Asian and you could be Black, or you could have more than that's a big, for years people had to put themselves in one box.
Yeah.
And the shift away from the one box, that's really good.
Yeah. That's why Obama hired that neuroscientist, Lakoff. He said, help me get elected. He said, well, don't go for issues. That's what Democrats go for. Go for feelings. That's what Republicans go for. So he said hope, and he got elected. Then he fired him. But anyways, I appreciate that. Let's do this bonus question. I forgot. Utah Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Well, probably nobody's entitled to make the rules. You have to earn the trust of people.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good if one person or a few people are making the rules for everybody else.
Yeah.
You can't confront about that. You have to have some kind of community that's deciding. So I used to go to France regularly because some of my books were published in French in France. And I published a book in this country, and it got translated and published in France. And the title was the same in both countries. It was Marijuana.
Yeah.
So the only people that sponsored me in France to interview me or have me in their bookstore were anarchists.
Yeah.
So I was in Bordeaux, and I was talking to one of these guys, and I said, well, what is anarchy and what does anarchism mean to you? He said, well, that's when the people in the community all together decide about education and about sanitation, and it's a community deciding together how the community is going to be operating.
That's completely true, Jonah, because I talked to an anarchy specialist in, you know him, PM Press there in San Francisco. And he says, no, Utah Phillips is wrong. But the funny thing is if you study the etymological roots of the word freedom, it means making one's rules for oneself. I struggle with my question because I don't mean to say entitled, but if I say who makes the rules, it's just, I've decided that's the easiest word or the most efficient word, but it is troublesome when I said who's entitled to make the rules. But this thing about freedom being the exact same thing Utah Phillips says. Freedom is making rules for themselves. What does freedom mean to you now?
Well, it definitely has to do with, freedom of thought.
Yeah.
Not having what Blake called the mind-forged manacles. I don't want any manacles in my brain telling me don't go there or don't think that. So it definitely has to do with the opposite of being brainwashed or brainwashing myself. I think some people brainwash themselves. It's not somebody or thing external.
Yeah, I call it self MK Ultra. But Zappa said it best. He said it with the question, who are the brain police? He didn't say the brain police are the evil capitalist corporate people, or the brain police are the voice inside your head. He said, who are the brain police? Okay, what's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
I've been told by many people that if you have rights, that means that you're also supposed to have responsibilities.
Yeah.
Maybe there's sort of like saying there's no free lunch. I do know that for a long time, I didn't like the idea of having responsibilities. I thought I could have freedom without having responsibilities. Although I used to quote somebody who said, freedom was the recognition of necessity. Maybe that's similar to having freedom is the recognition of responsibility. This is takes an older person to come to that conclusion.
Yeah. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Oh gosh, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Jonah, how has writing shaped your behavior?
Well, I write, therefore I am.
Very good. This is Thornton Wilder in 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Um, Expression, self-expression.
Yeah. What gives you the most optimism?
Um, um, uh, Unhappy endings of murder mysteries or crime novels. I can't stand musical comedies with Julie Andrews singing happy, bubbly songs. They depress the hell out of me.
That is good. Unhappy endings. Beautiful two words. Well, Jonah, it's really been enlightening, and I appreciate your time and energy. The first question I asked, what's the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. The last question, gives you the most optimism, is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life, and he said other people. It's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you, Jerry. Great
Even
spending.
though even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Ever and ever. Okay. Bye. Ciao.